Hey there Wargamers and X-Wing pilots, this is Justin here from AMP Services with this week's X-Wing Wednesday video. In today's video we're going to be discussing the Jumpmaster 5000, specifically the Contracted Scout. Now, there are 3 other named pilots for the Jumpmaster ship, but we're not going to be discussing them today. The reason for that is their loadouts and functionality are very different from the Contracted Scout. Dengar, for example, who's very alluring, is a very different ship. He functions more like a Fat Han than anything else. He requires a lot of gear cards to make himself good, and that leaves a lot less points left over for his support ships that you need to make him good. The Contracted Scout, on the other hand, can be outfitted a variety of different ways, and you can run between 1, 2, or 3 Contracted Scouts in your list, and if you run 1 or 2 of them, you still have extra points left over for different support ships. And if you're running 3 Contracted Scouts, you've still got 3 Contracted Scouts, whereas Dengar would just have himself and either a couple of smaller ships with him, or 1 other Contracted Scout, maybe. So in this particular case, if you're running multiples of this, or with other support ships, you're leveraging the weight of dice. You're also leveraging what other options those ships bring to the table. Maybe there's Z95s that are going to be blockers, or maybe you're running a triple Contracted Scout list because you want an absolutely brutal Alpha Strike turn. It really depends on where you want to go, and this guy gives you that versatility. So with that being said, let's jump right in and discuss the pilot card. Now the Contracted Scout comes in at 25 points, similar to a low-end X-Wing. He's got a 3 pilot skill, which is kind of low, but he's got it where it counts elsewhere on the card. He's got a 2 attack value, 2 evade, 5 hull, 4 shields. Now the 2 attack value does seem a little bit low, but they make up for that by giving him a 360-degree arc of fire, which is also really nice. He's got a 2 evade value, which is not the greatest given the other ships out there, but when you consider the fact that he has 2 evade on a big ship, that's actually pretty fantastic. There's not too many big ships that have 2 or more evade. When you compare him to, say, Han Solo, for example, only has 1, or the Decimator, or the Ghost, things like that have 0, this guy actually has a little bit of an opportunity to try and survive. Now the fact that he's got 9 life points total is also really good. He can take a couple of turns of firing before he's going to go down, and that makes it more likely that he's going to be able to return shots and or get his initial Alpha Strike off. His action bar comes in with a focus action, target lock, and barrel roll. Now you guys are probably familiar with the focus and the target lock already. A variety of ships have those, but barrel roll on a big ship is absolutely brutal. It's surprising the amount of area that you can traverse with a barrel roll or a boost action on a big ship. The fact that these guys come stock with barrel roll gives you a lot of options for trying to dodge around, get away, or just get better positioning altogether. That all being said though, where this guy really makes it up for his points, which are already low, it really drives home how good of a ship he is in his upgrade bar down here. This guy has access to an elite pilot talent, which is absolutely ridiculous. He's got a 3 pilot skill and can take an elite pilot talent. That opens this guy wide open for a variety of things that you can do. He also comes with 2 torpedo slots, a cruise slot, a scum version of an astromech slot, and an illicit slot. Now, the rest of this build is going to be focusing on torpedoes though. So the elite pilot slot's going to be kind of auto-included to a specific one, and while there are multiple torpedo options, I've only laid out 2, and I'm going to explain why I think those are the optimal 2 to consider for this ship. Alright, so that leads me into the elite pilot slot. Now we did mention that this guy's optimal builds, in my opinion, are with torpedoes, and that makes Deadeye almost an auto-include. Now Deadeye comes in at 1 point and it reads, you may treat the attack target lock header as attack focus. When an attack instructs you to spend a target lock, you may spend a focus token instead. Now, this seems pretty straightforward. Oh, I get to sit on a focus and I get to activate my torpedoes without a target lock. Oh, that's common sense, I get it. Well, it's a little bit more than that. There are a couple of different reasons. So first of all, let's keep in mind that Contracted Scout has a 3 pilot skill. What does that mean? Well, a 3 pilot skill means that you are going to be activating first, most likely, and shooting last. So early on, you're probably going to be looking at turn 2 earliest that you're going to get your initial Alpha Strike off with whatever torpedoes you're running. Now, keeping in mind that you move first on turn 2 or possibly 3, you are unlikely to have your opponent at range 3 for that initial target lock. That makes Deadeye super effective. you're going to move early, probably not going to have your opponent in target lock range, so you throw that focus on yourself. If your opponent wants to get in range of you to fire, they're going to be in range of you to fire back, which means you can activate your focus to utilize your torpedoes and unleash a volley. That is why this is an auto include for this particular style of build. Now, this is where the build starts to deviate and change a little bit. Now, you've got two torpedo options that I think are optimal. And that's the proton torpedoes and plasma torpedoes. Now let's discuss these one at a time and go through each different style of build. Now, the proton torpedoes come in at 4 points, and they read: Attack target lock. Spend your target lock and discard this card to perform this attack. You may change one of your eyeball results to a critical result. It comes in at 4 points. It has range 2 to 3, 4 attack dice. This is fantastic for a variety of reasons. One, at range 3 with a secondary weapon, your opponent does not get a bonus evade dice. So you're firing 4 attack dice when normally your standard attack value with the contracted scout is a 2, and you're doing it at potential ranges where your opponent doesn't get a bonus. Add to that statistically you're going to get at least 2 hits with this, 50% chance on each die, and you have a chance to change one of your eyeball results to a crit. This is absolutely brutal. With the right setup, you're probably going to be hitting 3 or 4 hits every time it fires. This also synergizes really well with other gear upgrades, which we will discuss in just a moment. The second torpedo that I really like, if I'm not running the protons, is the plasma torpedoes. Now they come in at 1 point less at 3 points, and they read: Attack target lock. Spend your target lock and discard this card to perform this attack. If this attack hits, after dealing damage, remove 1 shield token from the defender. It has the same range as the protons at 2 to 3, and it has the same attack value. This is really good if you're playing the meta. If you're worried about going against other contracted scouts or big ships, things that have a lot of shields, this is fantastic. It's going to give you the option to get that extra damage, or a potential extra damage after the fact. Let's say you launch these plasma torpedoes at somebody, and let's say they have 4 shields and you only get 3 damage through, and that takes away 3 of them. Because you dealt damage, you'd get to take an additional shield away. The reason I don't like the plasma torpedoes is because they have less of a chance to hit than the protons. You don't get to change an eyeball to a crit. And if you're firing at a ship with no shields, or only, let's say, a Kirax fighter, for example, that has 1 shield, you could get damage through, but the extra benefit of this card is wasted because it doesn't do anything. That's why I lean towards the proton torpedoes. I feel like they do a little bit more damage, and they're a little bit more versatile. The fact that they can crit is also really good. Now, moving on to finish out the torpedo slots, there are 2 other things that really drive home making them effective. The first one is extra munitions. Now, you're not going to be running proton torpedoes and plasma torpedoes on the same ship. It's just not going to be point and cost effective. To run both of those, it would be 7 points. Ideally, you would run one of them, your choice depending on your meta or what you favor playing, and then for your second slot, you'd run extra munitions. Now, extra munitions reads: when you equip this card, place 1 ordnance token on each equipped torpedo, munitions, or bomb upgrade card. When you're instructed to discard an upgrade card, you may discard 1 ordnance token on that card instead. This is really awesome because for 2 points, it basically gives you one of those other torpedoes a second use. So rather than running 2 proton torpedoes on your ship that would run you 8 points, you can spend 2 points and get 2 uses out of your proton torpedoes. Alternatively, instead of spending 6 points on 2 plasmas, you could spend 3 points for the plasma, 2 points for this, and get to use the plasma twice. So the difference is you would spend 6 points total for the protons or 5 points total for the plasmas. You actually save 2 extra points using this with the protons versus saving 1 point when using it with the plasmas. So keep that in mind. The final upgrade card that really drives home the torpedo portion of this build is guidance chips. It comes in at 0 points, 0 points for this, and it reads: once per round, when attacking with a torpedo or munitions secondary weapon, you may change 1 die result to a hit result or a critical result if your primary weapon value is a 3 or higher. Now, we know the contracted scout only has a 2 attack value, so the second half of this card is going to be useless. The first half, however, being able to change any of your results to a hit is fantastic. Let's say, for example, proton torpedoes, 4 attack dice, you're hitting with 2, If you roll an eyeball, you get to change it to a critical, that's 3. And if you have a 4th eyeball or blank result, boom, guidance chips into 4 hits. At a bare minimum with guidance chips on proton torpedoes, statistically you should be hitting with at least 2 of those attack dice. If you manage to roll no eyeball results, use guidance chips 3. Statistically speaking, with the proton torpedoes you should be hitting with 3 or 4 dice every time you fire, unless you're just really unlucky. The plasma torpedo is much the same, except again it doesn't have the focus option to change a result to a critical. So you're not going to have that extra layer of potential hits, but same thing's going to hold true. You're going to statistically hit with 2 out of the 4 dice, use guidance chips on one of the 2 that miss, and boom, 3 hits. With the plasma torpedoes in particular, if you're shooting at a ship that has a lot of shields and you manage to not crack their shields fully when you hit them, boom, you get to strip an extra shield. Really depends on how you want to build your ship and what you're going to face, but guidance chips is fantastic, and I really favor guidance chips with proton torpedoes. Now this is where the build starts to deviate a little bit. Let's look at the astromech options. Now the R4 astromech pairs really well with Deadeye. The R4 astromech reads, when attacking, after you spend a focus token, you may acquire a target lock on the defender. So essentially what you would do is you would declare the attack on the defender, you would use your target lock to activate said torpedo of your choice, whether it's protons or plasmas, whatever you're using, and because you just spent a focus during the attack, you immediately get a target lock. So you've used your focus to activate a torpedo. Now you're given a target lock on that target before you've rolled your attack with said torpedoes. Then you roll the torpedoes and use your can potentially use this target lock to re-roll dice, and then at the very end, whatever's left, use your guidance chips to kind of roll or change into more hits. This is incredibly effective for an initial alpha strike. I don't lean towards liking this one as much though, because there's a lot more versatility you can get out of other gear options for later in the game. This guy's really good for the initial alpha strike. Once that alpha strike's done, his effectiveness kind of drops, especially if your ship lives long enough to get off both of its shots. You know, you're running extra munitions with a torpedo. Once you get those 2 shots off, this guy falls off and he's absolutely, I won't say absolutely useless, but he's less effective. You may be sitting on a focus token, but it's just not as effective. It doesn't combo as well. Now, the other astromech that you have options to use is the unhinged astromech. He's 1 point cheaper than the R4 at 1 point total, and he reads, you may treat all 3 speed maneuvers as screen maneuvers. Now this doesn't give you the free target lock, so it doesn't let you hit, but it adds 3 extra green maneuvers to your dial. Now, one of the issues with the the contracted scout is that he only has green maneuvers moving to the left-hand side. So he's got an asymmetrical dial. The fact that the unhinged astromech gives you a 3 bank, 3 straight is really awesome. 3 extra green maneuvers is fantastic. It puts him at a total of 9 green maneuvers. So that's not necessarily going to help you with immediate combat, but it's going to give you extra maneuvers to help shed stress or get away. And that's awesome. Now, there are other synergizing effects that you can use in conjunction with the rest of the build though. One of the things that I saw used, and I kind of stole this idea, is utilizing unhinged astromech in your crew slot as the K4 security droid. So the K4 security droid says, after executing a green maneuver, you may acquire a target lock. It comes in at 3 points. So let's say you're not running an R4 agromech, and you run the unhinged astromech because you want the extra green on your dial and more ease of maneuverability. But you do like the increased odds of hitting. The fact that you can take a green 3 maneuver, you have 9 greens now, and get a target lock for free, and then use an action for a focus gives you basically where you were. You can spin the target lock to activate the torpedo now because you got it with him, or you can use the focus to activate or to fire your torpedoes as well. This guy's really versatile. The other thing that's really good to note about the K4 security droid is that you may acquire a target lock. It's not a free target lock action. So if you're going up against a stress spot or something like that, and you have multiple stress and you can't shed them, the fact you can take a green, still have stress on you, and get a free target lock means that if you have torpedoes left, you still can fire them. If you don't have torpedoes left, you still got a target lock for free when you're not normally allowed to take an action, and you can use that during the preceding shooting phase. So it gives you a lot of action economy. I'm a big fan of unhinged agromech in the K4 security droid. I am also a big fan of running debris tokens, so if I accidentally fly through one and get a stress, as long as I was doing a green through it, I still get an action, sort of, that's free. It's not a free action, but I'm getting the effect of an action for free. So really good action economy on this ship. K4 security droid with unhinged astromech is really good. Now, if you're not going to run the K4 security droid, there are two other crew options that are really effective to consider for your build, and that's Greedo and Boba Fett. Now, Greedo is a catch-22. He's there if you're really going to try and get some face-up damage cards on him, but you may take some back in return. He comes in at one point and he reads, the first time you attack each round and the first time you defend each round, the first damage card dealt is face-up. Now, this is really good with both the plasma or protons, so long as you get damage through. If you're trying to go for face-up damage, for 1 point you could take Greedo and try and shove the torpedoes through somebody's shields or get them into hull and get a face-up damage card on them. What you can do to synergize Greedo with the rest of your team is fire with other ships first, so that you have really good odds of your shots going to straight to hull rather than the shield, so you can leverage that face-up damage card. The thing I don't like about Greedo is also his main negative. It's the fact that he can potentially force a face-up damage, but the first time he's shot, if he's dealt a damage card, it's dealt face-up as well. So it's a catch-22. It can hurt you as much as it hurts the enemy. That's why I don't like it. But it is an option if that's what you want to go with. So my favorite crew upgrade, other than the K4 security droid, is Boba Fett. Now Boba Fett comes in at 1 point and he reads, after performing an attack, if the defender was dealt a face-up damage card, you may discard this card to choose and discard one of the defender's upgrade cards. This is absolutely fantastic. What I like to do, which is similar to Greedo, is I like to fire with at least one other ship first before my Boba Fett contracted scout build goes. I want to try and get through the shields on my opponent before they fire. So let's say hypothetically I'm going up against a Poe Dameron with a R2-D2 or a R5-P9. He's a shield regen style ship. I fire at that ship with my other contracted scout or a Zuckuss or something like that first, and try and strip maybe at least 2 of Poe's shields if I can. Then I follow up and I would fire with my Boba Fett ship with my proton torpedoes, try and get through that remaining shield if there is one, and hoping for that eyeball. I may not get it, but if I get that eyeball, I'm going to change one of the hit results to a crit. I've got my guidance chips, potentially. I've got a target lock. Really doing everything I can to try and get that critical result so that Boba Fett can become effective. If I get that critical through onto a Poe Dameron or a ship that has a really reliable upgrade card, I can pop Boba Fett and I can be like, boom, your R2-D2's dead. Oh, you're running Fat Han, your C-3PO's dead, or your Lando, or your R2-D2 crew. Boba Fett is a game changer. You can also use him against ships like Tin Nub, if he's got a Mangler cannon. If he gets a damage through, boom, Mangler's gone. Hound's Tooth, boom, your heavy laser cannon's gone. Or Dash Rendar, boom, heavy laser cannon's gone. For 1 point, he can take out really huge upgrade cards. Maybe he's going up against a Dengar. Boba Fett, his ship gets a critical in on Dengar. You discard Boba Fett, and you take off the Punishing One title. One point upgrade can take out a 12-point title and strip the Dengar back down to 2 attack dice. Ridiculous. Boba Fett goes in and he murders an upgrade card. He's murdering a cannon. It's ridiculous. So he's really fantastic. Now, the problem with Boba Fett, though, is if you don't get the critical on the proton torpedo, Boba Fett's useless. The other problem with Boba Fett, especially if you're going up against something like Poe Dameron, if you shoot at him first, you take out his shields, and then Boba Fett comes in with protons and unloads a huge volley on him. If he kills him, then Boba Fett didn't get used, which is fine because you can use him later, but it either works really well for taking out like an R2-D2, or he just kind of sits there and waits for another target. It is what it is. Now, the last upgrade we've got sitting here, though, that I haven't discussed, is one that's optional. You may or may not have points to utilize your elite or your illicit slot, and there's one that's not here. You may be like, oh, that one's good. Inertial dampeners. I can't think of a reason I would ever want to stall with a contracted scout. It's got such a lucrative dial and lots of movement options that it can do. I'm not sure that I'd ever want to take that one stress and stall and then not be able to do actions. I think the K4 security droid's more effective. I can do that green maneuver and get a target lock. So for that reason, the only list that I think that may be viable on the Contracted Scout, if you want it, is the Glitter Stem. And Glitter Stem comes in at 2 points, and it reads, at the start of the combat phase, you may discard this card and receive 1 stress token. If you do, until the end of the round, when attacking or defending, you may change all your eye results to attack or to hit or evade results. That's really good. Now this does give you a stress, but you've already taken your action for the turn when you get said stress. So you can do your normal moves, your normal actions, and at the start of the combat phase you take a stress. The following turn you take a green maneuver. If you got the K4 Astra or K4 security droid, you're getting a free target lock if they're in range. It really synergizes well. Now you don't have a whole lot of attack dice to begin with, and you don't have a whole lot of evade. So that's where this may not be as effective, but it could be really good if you're back against the wall, your ship's about to go down. It can help you stay alive. It's also really good if you're really trying to leverage those proton torpedoes and you're running a build that's, maybe you're not running R4 Agromech or you're not running K4 security droid, so you don't have target locks. Being able to use this to change your eyeballs to hits may help out, especially with guidance chips. It may not help out so much on proton torpedoes because you're going to be changing an eye to a critical, but maybe this is going to work good for you with the plasma torpedoes. It may synergize well because you don't have that extra hit potential that you do with the protons, so this may be good for you. I don't consider using it too much because it's hard to shave points, but this is one of the upgrade cards I think I could do without if I really needed the 2 points. Especially if I was running a triple Contracted Scout build, that would add up to 6 points if they all had identical builds. So this is I've got points left over, maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't, or I'm going to run like 1 or 2 Contracted Scouts with supports and you've got points to spare. That's what that would be for. So let's review one more time some of the build options total for what it might look like. So let's move some of these out of the way, and let's go over my favorite build first. So you may run Contracted Scout, 25 points, and you're going to start with adding Deadeye, 26 point ship right now. You're going to come in and be like, alright, what am I going to do with Deadeye? I'm going to add proton torpedoes. I want to have increased chance to hit, and I want a chance to shove a critical into your ship's face. So boom, protons. Because I want to get my protons off multiple times, we're going to add extra munitions. So right now, this ship's clocking in at 32 points. And boom, we're going to add a 0-point upgrade, guidance chips. Now again, just to do a quick review, I like guidance chips with proton torpedoes because proton torpedoes have 4 attack dice and they get to change 1 eyeball to a critical result. And best case scenario, I rolled 2 hits and an eyeball and a miss. I change the eyeball to a critical. I use guidance chips to change the 4th one to a hit. Bada bing, bada boom, 4 hits. Worst case scenario, you roll 4 blanks. Guidance chips at least will always guarantee you're getting 1 hit. If you are rolling statistically sound and you happen to not roll that eyeball result and you roll 2 out of 4 hits, 50%, guidance chips put you to 75. Really good odds of hitting. To drive that build home, we're going to grab Boba Fett, add an extra 1 point, so we went from 32 to 33. We're leveraging the fact that hopefully Boba Fett's going to get a critical to proc off of proton torpedoes, and then you can stick Boba Fett on the enemy ship and say, hey, I want you to shoot R2-D2 in the funny bone, get him out of the game. I want you to blow up Dash's heavy laser cannon, or Han Solo's Lando, go capture him, whatever you want to do. That guy's your man to give you that upgrade. For my droid slot, I really, with this one, I like to run with the R4 Agromech, specifically because I want to make sure this ship is hitting. So we went from 33 points with Boba Fett to 35 points with the R4 Agromech. So early on, we're going to move forward on turn 2 or 3. We've got our Deadeye focus. As soon as we go to attack the enemy when they engage us, we spin that focus, we get a target lock on them. If we roll really bad using our proton torpedoes, we spin the target lock. Hopefully we'll get either an eyeball result or just roll in more hits, and then finish up at the very end with guidance chips to really try and shove that 4 damage into the enemy ship. 35 points for this is fantastic. Very few places in the X-Wing game are you going to be able to invest 35 points into a ship like this and get that kind of effectiveness. This brings a lot to the table, and its one real vice is its low pilot skill. Being able to shoot at this ship before it fires at you makes it a very opportunistic target to go after, and that's where your support ships come in handy. So what kind of other contracted scout may you run in addition to the Boba Fett build? So let's switch this up a little bit and change it. So to support Boba Fett with a second contracted scout, boom, another contracted scout. First upgrade, just like on Boba, we're going to go with Deadeye. So this ship's coming in at 35 points. What torpedoes are we going to run? We're going to run the plasmas on this one. So we went from 26 points to 29 points. What are we going to run in addition to that? Yep, just like the other one, we're going to be running extra munitions. We're running extra munitions so that we can guarantee we've got two chances to get off plasma torpedoes. This is absolutely brutal as well. It doesn't have the same to hit options as the protons, but you have a good chance to strip some shields off before that Boba Fett goes in and decides to sick whatever upgrade card he wants to kill. And again, just like with the Boba Fett build, boom, guidance chips. Free upgrade, increased odds to hit. So we're currently looking at a 31 point ship standard. So to really drive home his effectiveness, we're going to throw on the unhinged astromech, and we're going to make all of his speed 3 maneuvers green. So we went from having 6 green maneuvers on the dial to now having 9. This is really effective and gives you a lot of options for movement. For his final upgrade, you probably saw this coming. I hope you did from earlier discussion. Boom, we're going to throw in that K4 security droid. So total right now, we are looking at a 35 point ship, coming in at the same amount of points that Boba Fett did for a different build and different things that you might want to do. The major combo here that's going to be different than Boba Fett is running the unhinged astromech with the K4 security droid. Being able to move, do your green maneuver with the unhinged astromech because you've got extras, then use the K4 security droid to get your target lock whether you're stressed or not. Maybe you're going up against a stress hog, maybe you went through a debris field, get the target lock. And so you're not stressed and you got the free target lock, you throw the focus on yourself, spend the focus to activate your plasma torpedoes, you got your target lock to increase the odds of hitting with the plasma torpedoes, and then use your guidance chips for for one of the misses that may remain. Really good odds of throwing this in and dealing some damage. You would open up with this contracted scout. You'd move forward on turn 2 or 3, throw your focus. If you get a target lock, cool. If you don't, your odds of hitting are a little bit lower. But you open up with this guy, you try and hit first, strip some shields, and then Boba Fett comes in to seal the deal. Either finish the ship or go in and strip off that upgrade that you really need to get rid of. Now, if you're running this build with Boba Fett, you're looking at around 70 points. That leaves you 30 points left over for an additional ship. Not quite enough for an optimum contracted scout Jumpmaster. You'd have to maneuver your points around a little bit to do that. But with 30 points, you could come in with several Z95s as supports, or even a twin laser turret Y-wing. I think I might lean with 2 Z95s, so maybe feedback array, which is going to come in at I think around 28 points. And you could literally finish this build out at 98 points and maybe go after a little bit of an initiative bid towards other contracted scouts. Now, you may not get it, they may be running 97 and may get the initiative choice over you, but having a 2-point deficit on your points may help you in a couple of your games. If you don't want that 2-point deficit, you could run slightly better Z95s with feedback array and come in at a flat 100 points. So it's really up to you and what you decide to do. So what do you guys think? This is one of my longer videos, and this is kind of off the top of the hat here. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to say. I knew kind of where I wanted to go, but didn't have anything written out. So what'd you think? Are you running similar contracted scouts? Do you have a different build? Share your comments below. I'd like to get a discussion. Are you a new player or new to the Jumpmasters, and did I share something that you decided to use? Share your results below. Let me hear about your game. I'd like to get a discussion going there too. It's kind of a vicarious feeling being able to talk to somebody who used a similar build or used the build I suggested and used it in their game. Now, with my normal spill here, many of you may or may not know, but I do get paid to paint. I did not paint this beautiful piece here. The pre-painted stuff from Fantasy Flight is good, but I do paint a lot of miniatures, and it's how I make a living. So if you'd like to have me paint some X-Wing miniatures for you, or maybe some other tabletop game like Warhammer or War Machine, Hordes, things like that, please click Quote Request now. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel and keep up with what we're doing, please take a moment to subscribe. Additionally, if you'd like to keep up with us on Facebook and check out our current promotions and what else we have going on, please give us a like over there as well. Finally, I've started a Patreon page, and I'd like to get myself into a position where I'm doing more YouTube content in addition to painting, I'd like to get into some tutorials or battle reports, but I have to have funding and things like that to make that happen as well. So I've started my own Patreon page. If you'd like to support my channel, that would be awesome. In addition to you guys supporting me, I'd like to give back to you, so you'll be able to get some cool widgets or things like that to use in your games and stuff like that. So if you want to support me, cool. If not, at a bare minimum, it'd be awesome if you subscribed. Anyways, guys, this is a long video. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you enjoyed. As always, happy wargaming, and if you're out there playing X-Wing, fly casual.